The galaxy was not a quiet place. It was full of signals, voices, and watching eyes. Across thousands of star systems, powerful civilizations observed each other, studied each other, and sometimes feared each other. But on this day, something felt different. Something felt wrong. A signal had appeared. Not from one world, but from many. It was a warning at first. No one took it seriously. Warnings were common in the galaxy. Weak species always sent warnings when they were afraid. And strong species usually ignored them. But this warning was strange. It was not filled with fear. It was filled with urgency. And the message was simple. The silence is breaking. Many alien leaders looked at the message and felt confused. Some laughed, some ignored it. Others were curious, but no one was afraid. Not yet, except a few, in the outer regions of the galaxy. Ancient civilizations that had survived for millions of years saw the message and went silent. They remembered something old, something dangerous. But even they were not sure, because the silence had not been seen for a very long time. Meanwhile, attention slowly turned toward a small blue planet. A planet called Earth. Humans had sent the message. This surprised many species. Humans were not considered important. They were new, weak, and divided. They fought among themselves, made mistakes, and had very little power compared to advanced civilizations. To most of the galaxy, humans were just observers, not players. So why were they sending warnings? Why were they speaking with such confidence? Alien networks began to focus on Earth. Watching every move, what they saw made even less sense. Human activity was increasing at an unusual speed. Ships were launching, satellites were moving, and energy levels were rising. It looked like preparation. But preparation for what? No one knew then. Another message came from Earth. This time, it was direct. It was not sent quietly. It was broadcast across the galaxy, loud and clear. Do not interfere. That was all it said. No explanation, no details, just a command. The reaction was immediate. Some alien leaders were angry. How dare they, one said. Humans are in no position to give orders, another replied. Others found it amusing. They think they are important. They laughed. But a few felt something else, unease, because humans were not known for making bold claims without reason. They were reckless, yes, but not foolish. Back on Earth, things were moving quickly. Deep under the surface, in hidden facilities, humans were working day and night, scientists, engineers, and soldiers were all focused on one goal, a plan that had been kept secret for years. A plan no other species would even consider. Above the planet, in orbit, massive structures were activating. Ships gathered in silence, waiting. The galaxy watched closely now. Curiosity was turning into concern. Something was happening, something big. Then it appeared. At the edge of the solar system, sensors across multiple civilizations detected it at the same time. A distortion, a movement that did not follow normal physics. It was not a ship, it was not a fleet. It was something else, something far worse. Data started flowing rapidly between alien networks. Old records were opened. Forgotten histories were studied again. And slowly, the truth began to form. This was not a new threat. This was something ancient. Something that had destroyed civilizations long before humans even existed. Panic began to spread, but on Earth, there was no panic, only action. Human leaders did not send another warning. They did not ask for help. They did not try to escape. Instead, they gave a single command. Begin launch sequence. Across the planet, massive systems powered on. Energy levels spiked beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen from a species like humans. Alien observers were stunned. What are they doing? One asked quietly. No one had an answer, because what humanity was about to do, no one had ever done before, and as the unknown threat moved closer, the entire galaxy began to watch. Not with laughter anymore, but with growing fear. Asterisk. The thing at the edge of the solar system was not slowing down. It did not send signals. It did not change direction. It did not react to anything. It only moved forward, across the galaxy. Sensors tried to understand it, but every scan gave a different result. Sometimes it looked like energy. Sometimes it looked like matter. Sometimes it looked like nothing at all. This made it more dangerous. Because if something could not be understood, it could not be controlled. Ancient archives began to open. Civilizations that had existed for millions of years started searching their oldest records. Hidden data, forgotten warnings, sealed memories, and slowly, a name returned. Not a real name, but a description. The silence, long ago. Before most current empires were even born. The silence had appeared. It did not arrive with ships or armies. It arrived alone, and then worlds began to disappear. Not destroyed, not burned, just gone. Entire planets, with all life, all history, all structure, vanished without a trace. No debris, no signals, no survivors. Only empty space remained at first. Many species thought it was a natural event, a rare cosmic disaster. But then it kept happening, again and again. Civilizations tried to fight it. They sent fleets. Weapons, defenses, nothing worked. Attacks passed through it like it was not there. Energy weapons had no effect. Physical weapons did nothing. Even advanced reality-based technology failed. The silence did not fight back. It did not defend itself. It simply continued. And everything in its path disappeared, eventually. The strongest empires made a decision. They stopped fighting. They ran. Entire species abandoned their home systems, leaving behind everything. Some survived, many did not, and over time, the silence vanished again. No one knew why. No one knew where it went. So the galaxy did what it always does. It forgot, back in the present. That same pattern was beginning again. The distortion near the solar system matched the ancient records perfectly. The silence had returned. Panic spread faster than ever before. This was not an enemy you could defeat. This was not a war you could win. This was extinction. Emergency councils formed across the galaxy. Leaders who once ignored humans were now watching Earth closely. Because humans were not running, this made no sense. Every advanced civilization knew the correct response. Escape, preserve your species, live to rebuild somewhere else. But humans were doing the opposite. They were staying. Even worse, they were preparing on Earth. Massive machines powered up deep underground. Devices that had no record in any known database. In orbit, human ships were not retreating. They were moving closer to the edge of the system. Closer to the silence. Alien observers were shocked. Do they not understand what that is? One asked. They must know, another replied. But then why are they still there? No one could answer that. Because no species in history had ever chosen to face the silence. Then something even more strange happened. Human networks went dark. Communication from Earth suddenly reduced. Only a few signals remained active. And those signals were not calls for help. They were calculations complex. Massive calculations being processed at incredible speed. It was like the entire human civilization had become a single machine. Focused on one task, observers tried to decode the data. But it was too advanced, too chaotic. It did not follow normal patterns. It was unpredictable, just like humans themselves. Closer and closer, the silence moved, now clearly visible as a shifting distortion in space. Stars behind it stretched and bent. Light itself seemed to break around it. And still, it made no sound, still. It gave no sign of awareness, it simply existed. And it was coming for Earth. Finally, a decision was made by several alien empires. They would leave, even if it meant abandoning nearby systems. Survival was more important than pride. Evacuation fleets began to move. Worlds prepared for relocation. Fear controlled every action. But even as they prepared to run, They kept watching Earth. Because one question refused to go away. What were humans planning? Then a final transmission came from Earth. Short, clear, and calm. We are aware. That was all. No panic, no fear, no request for help, just understanding. This message spread across the galaxy in seconds, and for the first time, many began to feel something even worse than fear of the silence. They began to feel fear of humanity, because if humans truly understood what was coming, and they still chose to stay, then maybe they were about to do something far more dangerous than running. And as the silence entered the outer boundary of the solar system, human defenses finally activated, not to escape, but to engage. And the galaxy watched, waiting to see how a weak species planned to face something that had never been stopped. Asterisk, long before the silence returned, humans were already afraid. Not of war, not of aliens, but of the unknown. They had always feared what they could not see, what they could not understand. And that fear pushed them to prepare years ago. Small signals had been detected at the edge of human space. Tiny distortions, easy to ignore, easy to dismiss. But humans did not ignore them. They studied them, carefully, quietly. While the rest of the galaxy focused on power and expansion, humans focused on patterns, and the patterns did not look natural. They looked like a warning, so humanity began a project. A project hidden from the galaxy, even hidden from most humans. It had no official name, only a purpose. Find a way to fight something that could not be touched, deep beneath Earth's surface. Massive facilities were built, far from public view. Protected by layers of security, inside, scientists worked on ideas that other species would call impossible. They did not follow safe rules, they did not fear failure. Because failure was expected, and every failure taught them something new. They studied space itself, not just stars and planets, but the fabric behind them, the invisible structure that held everything together. They believed the silence was not a creature, not a machine, but a flaw, a break in reality. If that was true, then normal weapons would never work, because you cannot destroy a whole. You cannot fight something that is not fully there. So humans asked a different question. What if they did not destroy it? What if they changed it? The idea was dangerous. Even thinking about it caused fear among the scientists, because it meant changing the rules of reality itself. Something no species had ever tried on such a scale. But humans continued. They built devices that could bend space. Machines that could create controlled distortions. Small at first, unstable, dangerous. Many tests failed. Some ended in disasters. Entire facilities lost, data erased, people gone. But the project did not stop, it only grew. Because each failure brought them closer to understanding, and now, in the present, that secret work was finally ready, above Earth. Strange structures began to unfold. Not like weapons, not like ships, but something new. Massive rings of energy formed in orbit, connected by beams of light that pulsed in perfect rhythm. To alien observers, it made no sense. There was no clear attack pattern. No defensive formation. It looked chaotic, unstable. Is this their plan? One observer asked. This cannot work, another replied. But humans were not trying to fight in a normal way. They were not trying to win a battle. They were trying to change the game itself on Earth. The final calculations were being completed. The entire planet seemed to hold its breath. Every system, every machine, every mind focused on one moment. Then, something unexpected happened. The silence reacted. For the first time since it had been detected. Its movement changed. It slowed down, just slightly. But enough to be noticed. Across the galaxy, alarms triggered. Did it just respond? That has never happened before. The silence had never reacted to anything in the past. It had never shown awareness, but now something was different. It was as if it had noticed humanity, as if it understood that something unusual was happening. This changed everything, because if the silence could react, Then it was not just a force of nature. It was something more. Back on Earth, no one celebrated this moment. They expected it. In fact, they needed it, because their plan required attention, required the silence to focus on them, a risky move, a dangerous gamble. But humans were known for taking risks. The final stage was approaching. Energy levels across human systems reached critical levels. The structures in orbit began to spin faster. Space around them started to bend, light twisted into unnatural shapes. Even time seemed to slow near the edges of the system. Alien observers watched in shock. "This is not technology," one whispered. "This is something else." And they were right. Because humanity was not just using technology anymore. They were rewriting the rules they once followed. The silence moved again, now faster, as if it had made a decision. As if it wanted to stop whatever humans were about to do. But it was already too late. On Earth, a single command was given. Activate Phase 1. Across space, the human structures released a pulse. Not an attack, not a weapon, but a signal. A signal sent directly into the distortion, and for the first time in recorded history. The silence did not ignore it, it answered. And the galaxy watched in disbelief as humanity made contact with something that had never been touched before. The moment the silence answered, everything changed. It did not send words. It did not send signals that could be understood. But it responded. The distortion in space shifted. Not randomly, not slowly, but with purpose for the first time. It felt alive across the galaxy. Observers froze. No one had ever seen this before. The silence was not just moving, it was reacting. Near the edge of the solar system, human ships moved into position. They were small compared to alien war fleets. Simple in design, almost weak, but they did not hesitate. They moved directly toward the distortion, closer than any species had ever dared to go. "Are they trying to scan it?" one alien commander asked. "No," another replied. "They are provoking it." And they were right. Because humans needed a response, they needed to understand how it behaved when pushed. The first human ship crossed into the outer edge of the distortion. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ship was gone, not destroyed, not damaged. Just gone, no signal, no debris, no trace. The galaxy held its breath, but humans did not stop. More ships followed, one after another, each one disappearing the same way. To alien observers, it looked like madness. Why are they sacrificing their own fleet? This is pointless. They cannot win like this. But humans were not trying to win. They were learning. Each ship carried sensors. Each moment before disappearance sent back data. Tiny pieces of information, but enough back on Earth. Systems processed the data instantly. Patterns began to form. Reactions were measured. Limits were tested. The silence was not random. It had structure. It had rules. And humans were starting to see them. Then Phase 2 began. Larger ships moved forward. Not to enter the distortion, but to attack it. Energy beams fired. Bright, powerful, precise. They struck the edge of the silence. And for a moment, something impossible happened. The distortion flickered, just for a second, but it was real. The silence reacted again. This time more violently, space stood harder. The area around it became unstable. Gravitational waves spread outward. Several human ships were crushed instantly. Others were pulled apart, but still, they continued. "Stop them," one alien leader said. "They are making it worse." But no one could stop humanity now. Because this was part of the plan. Every attack, every loss, every second of chaos, it was all being used. Humans were pushing the silence to its limits. Forcing it to reveal its behavior. Forcing it to show its true form. And slowly, something began to appear. Inside the distortion, a shape, not clear, not stable, but visible, a core. Alien observers stared in shock. That should not be possible. The silence has no form, but now it did, because humans had forced it to show one. Back on Earth, the final calculations updated. The plan adjusted in real time. They were close now, very close. But the cost was rising. Human fleets were almost gone. Entire groups of ships had vanished. Resources were running out, time was running out. And the silence was becoming more aggressive. It began moving faster toward Earth. As if it understood the threat, as if it wanted to end this. But humanity was ready for that. The sacrifice phase was complete. The learning phase was complete. Now came the dangerous part. The part no other species had ever attempted. A final transmission was sent from Earth, not to the galaxy, but to the ships still alive near the distortion. A simple command. Hold position. The remaining ships stopped moving, even as space twisted around them. Even as destruction closed in, they stayed waiting. For what was coming next, across the galaxy. Silence spread among the observers. No one spoke, no one moved, because they could feel it. Something bigger was about to happen. Something far beyond a battle, and as the silence surged forward, ready to consume the last human ships, Earth activated the next phase. A phase that would not just fight the enemy, but change everything, and for the first time, even the strongest civilizations began to wonder if humanity was not trying to survive, but trying to do something far more terrifying, and far more impossible. Asterisk, asterisk. The remaining human ships did not run. They did not fire. They did not even try to defend themselves. They simply stayed in place, waiting. The silence moved closer, faster now, as if it had grown impatient. As if it wanted to erase this resistance completely. Across the galaxy, observers expected the end. "This is it," one said quietly. "Humanity is finished," another replied. But on Earth, no one believed that, because this moment was planned. Every loss, every sacrifice, every second of delay. It had all been leading to this, deep within hidden control centers. Human operators watched the data, not with fear, but with focus. The final calculations were complete. There was no turning back now. Because what they were about to do could not be undone. "Confirm Phase 3, a voice said. "Phase 3 confirmed," came the reply. And then, the command was given, begin the inversion. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The silence continued forward. The ships remained still. The galaxy waited, confused. Then space itself began to change. Not around the silence, but around the human ships. Small distortions appeared, like ripples in water. But these ripples did not fade. They grew, expanding outward, connecting with each other, forming a network, a web. Each ship became a point in that web. And together, they created something new. A controlled fracture in reality. Alien observers struggled to understand what they were seeing. This is not a weapon. No. This is something else. They were right, because humans were not attacking the silence. They were reshaping the space around it. The web expanded rapidly, stretching across millions of kilometers, surrounding the distortion, not trapping it, but overlapping it. The silence reacted immediately. Space twisted violently. Energy surged in unpredictable waves. Several ships were destroyed instantly, others vanished. But the web did not collapse. It adapted. Every time the silence pushed, the web adjusted. Every time space broke, the system corrected itself, because it was not just machines controlling it. It was human thinking, human unpredictability. Built into the system itself. Back on Earth, the pressure increased. Energy levels rose beyond safe limits. Systems began to fail. Warnings filled every screen. But no one stopped the process, because they knew the truth. This plan was never meant to be safe. It was meant to work. "Stability at 60%, one operator said. "That is enough," another replied. And then, the second command came. "Reverse the flow." In that moment, everything changed. The web did not just hold space together anymore. It pulled on it, Not inward, but outward, as if it was turning reality inside out. The silence slowed down. For the first time it struggled. The distortion became unstable, its edges flickered wildly. Its movement became uneven, across the galaxy. Shock turned into disbelief. They are affecting it. That is impossible. No one can change something like that. But humans were not trying to destroy the silence. They were forcing it to exist differently, forcing it to follow new rules. Rules that humans were creating in real time. The web tightened, the distortion stretched, and slowly, something incredible happened. The core inside the silence became clearer. Visible, vulnerable, for the first time in history. The silence was not untouchable. It could be seen. It could be affected. Back on Earth, silence filled the control rooms. Everyone understood what this meant. They had done it. They had made the impossible possible, but the plan was not over, because this was the most dangerous moment. If the system failed now, the damage would not just destroy Earth. It could spread across the entire galaxy, tearing space apart, rewriting reality in ways no one could predict. Even alien observers began to panic. They must stop, one leader said. This could destroy everything, but it was already too late, because humanity had crossed the line. They were no longer reacting to the silence. They were controlling the situation. And as the web reached its final stage, a new command was prepared, the last step. The step that would decide everything. And as the silence struggled inside the human-made fracture, the galaxy watched in horror, realizing that humanity was not just fighting a threat. They were changing the nature of existence itself. And there would be no going back. The web held, but it was not stable. Cracks began to spread through space itself. Not large at first, just thin lines of distortion. Barely visible, but they were growing. Across the galaxy, sensors started to fail. Navigation systems gave wrong positions. Stars appeared slightly out of place. Time signals became inconsistent. Something was wrong everywhere, not just near Earth. Every advanced civilization understood the same thing at once. This was no longer a local event. This was spreading. They are breaking reality, one alien scientist said. No. They are rewriting it, another replied. And that truth was far more terrifying. Back near Earth, the silence struggled inside the web, its shape no longer smooth. Its movement no longer perfect. It twisted. It resisted. But for the first time, it was not in control. Human systems continued to push, forcing the distortion to expand, stretching it across the fractured space, trying to reshape it completely, but the cost was rising fast. Entire human stations began to overload. Energy grids collapsed one by one. Several control centers went dark. Lost in seconds, still, the process continued. Because stopping now would be worse, much worse. Stability dropping, an operator said. 40%. No one responded. They already knew this was the limit. Across the galaxy, evacuation orders increased. Even the strongest empires began emergency retreats, not from the silence, but from humanity. Planets far from Earth started shutting down long-range systems, trying to isolate themselves from whatever was happening, because they no longer knew what the real threat was. The silence, or the humans trying to stop it. Back inside the distortion, the core began to change. Not just visible now, but unstable. It pulsed with uneven energy, reacting violently to the human web, as if it was being forced into a shape it could not hold. And then, something unexpected happened. The silence pushed back, not by attacking, but by expanding. Its distortion spread outward suddenly, breaking through parts of the web, touching the fractured space beyond. Where it touched, reality collapsed instantly. Stars flickered and dimmed. Signals vanished. Entire regions went dark. Alien observers panicked. It is escaping. No. It is merging. Both were wrong. Because what was happening was worse. The silence was adapting. It was changing in response to the new rules. Learning, just like humanity had learned from it. Back on Earth, alarms reached critical levels. Systems were failing faster now, energy reserves nearly gone. The web could not hold much longer. "This is the final window," a voice said. "If we do not finish now, we lose everything." There was no disagreement. Only one option remained, the final phase. The most dangerous part of the entire plan. A phase that had only been tested in theory, never in reality. Because it required something impossible, a full inversion of the silence itself. Not pushing it, not shaping it, but turning it completely inside out. If it worked, the silence would collapse. Its structure undone, its existence erased. But if it failed, the effect would not stop, it would spread. Consuming not just the enemy, but everything connected to it. Which now included the fractured space around Earth, and possibly the entire galaxy. Across alien networks, one final conclusion formed. Humans are not saving us. They are risking all of us, and for the first time. Even the oldest civilizations felt true fear. Not of extinction, but of change, because extinction was an end, but this was something unknown, something irreversible, back on Earth. The final command was prepared. Every remaining system redirected its last energy. Every calculation locked in place. Every human involved understood the truth. They might not survive this. But survival was never the goal, control was, and now. They were about to take it completely, begin final inversion. The command echoed through every remaining system. And in that moment, the web pulsed with its last strength. The silence froze, the fractured space trembled. And the galaxy watched, unable to look away. As humanity prepared to do the one thing no species had ever dared to attempt, not just fight the unknown, but redefine it completely, and whatever happened next, there would be no return to what existed before. For one brief moment, everything stopped. The silence did not move, the web did not expand. Even the fractured space seemed to hold its breath. Across the galaxy, every signal, every system, every mind was focused on a single point, Earth. Because this was the moment that would decide everything. Then the inversion began. Not with an explosion, not with light or sound, but with a shift, a deep, unnatural shift in reality itself. The web did not push anymore. It turned. Every point, every connection, every piece of distorted space flipped inward, as if reality was folding into itself. The silence reacted instantly, its form twisted violently. The core inside it stretched, breaking apart, trying to hold itself together, but it could not. Because for the first time, it was not following its own nature. It was following human rules, and those rules were not stable. The distortion collapsed inward, pulled into the center of the web. Not disappearing, but compressing, forcing all its impossible structure into a single point. Across the galaxy, sensors went blind, data streams failed completely. No one could measure what was happening anymore, because it no longer followed any known law. Back on Earth, systems began to shut down one by one. Power gone, control lost, only the core process remained active, running on the last fragments of energy. "This is the end," one operator whispered. No one answered, because there was nothing left to say. Either this worked, or nothing would remain. The silence shrank further, its unstable form collapsing into itself. The fractures in space began to close. Slowly at first, then faster, as if reality was repairing itself. Trying to return to something normal, but it was not the same. It would never be the same again. Then it happened. The core broke, not with force, but with failure. It could not exist under the new conditions. It could not survive the inversion. And in a single silent moment, the silence ended. Gone, not moved, not hidden, not waiting, erased, across the galaxy. Systems slowly came back online, Signals returned, stars stabilized. Space became still again, but no one celebrated. Because something had changed, something deep, something fundamental. Back near Earth, the web was gone, the ships were gone. Much of the human presence in space had vanished. Only debris remained, and silence, real silence. Not the ancient threat, but the absence of everything that had just happened. On Earth, survivors looked at their systems, at the empty space where the enemy once existed. And they understood they had won, but not in a way anyone expected. They had not defeated the silence. They had removed it from existence, at a cost no one could fully measure across alien civilizations. Reactions were slow, careful, uncertain. Because the truth was difficult to accept. The weakest species in the galaxy, the one most ignored, had done what no one else could. They had faced the impossible and changed it. Some felt respect. Others felt fear, but most felt both. Because if humanity could do this, then what else were they capable of? What else could they change? What else could they break or remake? A final human transmission spread across the galaxy. Weak, damaged, but clear. The threat is gone. No celebration. No pride, just a statement, simple, direct, human. And as the message echoed through the stars, the galaxy understood something new. Power was not about strength. It was not about size or age or technology alone. It was about willingness, the willingness to try the impossible, the willingness to risk everything, and the willingness to change the rules when nothing else worked. Humanity had done all three, and that made them something entirely different. Something the galaxy had never truly seen before. And as the stars returned to their normal light, and space grew quiet once again, one truth remained in every mind. Humanity was no longer the weakest species. They were something far more dangerous, something far more unpredictable. And for the first time in history, the entire galaxy felt it, not just fear of what exists, but fear of what could exist. Because humanity had shown them that even the impossible was not safe anymore, and somewhere, in the silence left behind, a single thought remained. Quiet, unspoken, but understood by all. What would humanity do next?